Okay, fine. So yesterday we read the introduction to this book and chapter 1, which talks about basically that each person has their own perception to things. Each person has their own beliefs, their values, and stories around the concept of money and wealth. I suppose this book is written because money and wealth is something which becomes our purpose ultimately. And thereby, since it is involving each one of us and involves the basic purpose because of which we are actually trying to do different things, is ultimately to gain that wealth and to have the money that we require. So it actually addresses the foundational or the basic purpose that we are all working towards. Having said that, we will continue with chapter 2 today, which is luck and risk. Nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. So I'll start reading and people can join in, as we progress. So this topic is risk and luck and risk. Mostly, if I see, I always look at risk when it comes to any financial decision. Luck is something which I don't factor or consider. So let's see how this changes, whether this changes this understanding. So nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. Yeah. Luck and risks are siblings. They are both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. NYU professor Scott Galloway has a related idea that is so important to remember when judging success, both your own and others. Nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. Bill Gates went to one of the only high schools in the world that had a computer. The story of how Lakeside School, just outside Seattle, even got a computer is remarkable. Bill Dougal was a World War II Navy pilot turned high school math and science teacher. He believed that book study wasn't enough without real world experience. He also realized that we would need to know something about computers when we got to college, recalled late Microsoft co founder Paul Allen. In 1968, Dougal petitioned the Lakeside School Mothers Club to use the proceeds from its annual roommate sale, about $3,000, to lease a teletype Model 30 computer hooked up to the General Electric mainframe terminal for computer time sharing. The whole idea of time sharing only got invented in 1965. Gates later said, "Someone was pretty forward looking." Most university graduate schools did not have a computer anywhere near as advanced as Bill Gates had access to in 8th grade, and he couldn't get enough of it. Gates was 13 years old in 1968 when he met classmate Paul Allen. Allen was also obsessed with the school's computer, and the two hit it off. Lakeside's computer wasn't part of its general curriculum. It was an independent study program. Bill and Paul could toy away with the thing at their leisure, letting the creativity run wild after school, late into the night, on weekends. They quickly became computing experts. During one of their late night sessions, Allen recalled Gates showing him a Fortune magazine and saying, "What do you think it's like to run a Fortune 500 company?" Allen said he had no idea. "Maybe we will have our own computer company someday," Gates said. Microsoft is now worth more than $1 trillion. A little quick math. In 1968, there were roughly 303 million high school aged people in the world, according to the UN. About 18 million of them lived in the United States. About 270,000 of them lived in Washington state. A little over 1 lakh of them lived in the Seattle area, and only about 300 of them attended Lakeside School. Start with 3 million, end with 300. 1 in a million high school age students attended the high school that had the combination of cash and foresight to buy a computer. Bill Gates happened to be one of them. Gates is not shy about what this meant. If there had been no Lakeside, there would have been no Microsoft, he told the school's graduating class in 2005. Gates is staggeringly smart, even more hardworking, and as a teenager had a vision for computers that even most seasoned computer executives couldn't grasp. He also had a 1 in a million head start by going to school at Lakeside. Now, let me tell you about Gates' friend Kent Evans. He experienced an equally powerful dose of luck's close sibling Risk. Bill Gates and Paul Allen became household names thanks to Microsoft's success. But back at Lakeside, there was a third member of this gang of high school computer prodigies. Kent Evans and Bill Gates became best friends in 8th grade. Evans was, by Gates' own account, the best student in the class. The two talked on the phone ridiculous amounts. Gates recalls in the documentary Inside Bill's Brain. I still know Ken's phone number. He says 525-7851. Evans was as skilled with computers as Gates and Allen. Lakeside once struggled to manually put together the school's class schedule, a maze of complexity to get hundreds of students the classes they need at times that don't conflict with other courses. The school tasked Bill and Kent, children by any measure, to build a computer program to solve the problem. It worked. And unlike Paul Allen, Kent shared Bill's business mind and endless ambition. Kent always had the big briefcase like a lawyer's briefcase. Gates recalls. We were always scheming about what we would be doing 5 or 6 years in the future. Should we go to be CEOs? What kind of impact could you have? Should we go be generals? Should we go be ambassadors? Whatever it was, Bill and Kent knew they would do it together. After reminiscing on his friendship with Kent, Gates trails off. We would have kept working together. I'm sure we would have gone to college together. Kent could have been a founding partner of Microsoft with Gates and Allen. But it would never happen. Kent died in a mountaineering accident before he graduated high school. Every year, there are around 3 mountaineering deaths in the United States. The odds of being killed on a mountain in high school are roughly 1 in a million. Bill Gates experienced 1 in a million luck by ending up at Lakeside. Kent Evans experienced 1 in a million risk by never getting to finish what he and Gates set out to achieve. The same force, the same magnitude, working in opposite direction. Luck and risk are both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. They are so similar that you can't believe in one without equally respecting the other. They both happen because the world is too complex to allow 100% of your action to dictate 100% of your outcome. They are driven by the same thing. You are one person in a game with 7 billion other people and infinite moving parts. The accidental impact of actions outside of your control can be more consequential than the ones you consciously take. But both are so hard to measure and hard to accept that they too often go overlooked. For every Bill Gates, there is a Kent Evans who was just as skilled and driven but ended up on the other side of life roulette. If you give luck and risk their proper respect, you realize that when judging people's financial success, both your own and others, it's never as good or as bad as it seems. Years ago, I asked economist Robert Shiller, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics, what do you want to know about investing that we can't know? The exact role of luck in successful outcomes, he answered. I love that response because no one actually thinks luck doesn't play a role in financial success. But since it's hard to quantify luck and rude to suggest people's success is owed to it, The default stance is often to implicitly ignore luck as a factor of success. If I say, there are a billion investors in the world, by sheer chance, would you expect 10 of them to become billionaires, predominantly of luck? You would reply, of course. But then, if I ask you to name those investors to their face, you will likely back down. When judging others, attributing success to luck makes you look jealous and mean, even if you know it exists. And when judging yourself, attributing success to luck can be too demoralizing to accept. Economist Bhaskar Mazumdar has shown that incomes among brothers are more correlated than height or weight. If you are rich and tall, your brother is more likely to also be rich than he is tall. I think most of us intuitively know this is true. The quality of your education and the doors that open for you are heavily linked to your parents' socio-economic status. But find me two rich brothers and I will show you two men who do not think this study's findings applies to them. Failure, which can be anything from bankruptcy to not meeting a personal goal, is equally abused. Did failed businesses not try hard enough? Were bad investments not thought through well enough? Are wayward careers due to laziness? Sometimes, yes, of course. But how much? It's so hard to know. Everything worth pursuing has less than 100% odds of succeeding, and risk is just what happens when you end up on the unfortunate side of that equation. Just as with luck, the story gets too hard, too messy, too complex if we try to pick apart how much of an outcome was a conscious decision versus a risk. Say I buy a stock and 5 years later it's gone nowhere. It's possible that I made a bad decision by buying it in the first place. It's also possible that I made a good decision that had an 80% chance of making money and I just happened to end up on the side of the unfortunate 20%. How do I know which is which? Did I make a mistake or did I just experience the reality of risk? It's possible to statistically measure whether some decisions were wise, but in the real world, day to day, we simply don't. It's too hard. We prepare simple stories which are easy but often devilishly misleading. After spending years around investors and business leaders, I've come to realize that someone else's failure is usually attributed to bad decision, while your own failures are usually chalked up to the dark side of risk. When judging your failures, I am likely to prefer a clean and simple story of cause and effect because I don't know what's going on inside your head. You had a bad outcome, so it must have been caused by a bad decision, is the story that makes the most sense to me. But when judging myself, I can make up a wild narrative justifying my past decisions and attributing bad outcomes to risk. The cover of Forbes magazine does not celebrate poor investors who made good decisions but happened to experience the unfortunate side of risk. But it almost certainly celebrates rich investors who made okay or even reckless decisions and happened to get lucky. Both flipped the same coin that happened to land on a different side. The dangerous part of this is that we are all trying to learn about what works and what doesn't with money. What investing strategies work, which ones don't. What business strategies work, which ones don't. How do we get rich? How do you avoid being poor? We tend to seek out these lessons by observing successes and failures and saying, do what she did, avoid what he did. If we had a magic wand, we would find out exactly what proportion of these outcomes were caused by actions that are repeatable versus the role of random risk and luck that swayed those actions one way or the other. But we don't have a magic wand. We have brains that prefer easy answers without much appetite for nuance. So identifying the traits we should emulate or avoid can be agonizingly hard. Let me tell you another story of someone who, like Bill Gates, was widely successful, but whose success is hard to pin down as being caused by luck or skill. Cornelius Vanderbilt had just finished a series of business deals to expand his railroad empire. One of his business advisors leaned in to tell Vanderbilt that every transaction he agreed to broke the law. My God, John, said Vanderbilt, you don't suppose you can run a railroad in accordance with the statutes of the state of New York, do you? My first thought when reading this was that attitude is why he is so successful. Laws didn't accommodate railroads during Vanderbilt's days, so he said to hell with it and went ahead anyway. Vanderbilt was widely successful, so it's tempting to view his law flaunting, which was notorious and vital to his success and sage wisdom. That scrappy visionary let nothing get in his way. But how dangerous is that analysis? No sane person would recommend flagrant crime as an entrepreneurial trait. You can easily imagine Vanderbilt's story turning out much different. An outlaw whose young company collapsed under court order. So we have a problem here. You can praise Vanderbilt for flaunting the law with as much passion as you criticize Enron for doing the same. Perhaps one got lucky by avoiding the arm of law, while the other found itself on the side of risk. John D. Rockefeller is similar. His frequent circumventing of the law, a judge once called his company no better than a common thief, is often portrayed by historians as cunning business smarts. Maybe it was, but when does the narrative shift from you didn't let outdated laws get in the way of innovation to you committed a crime? Or how little would the story have to shift for the narrative to have turned from Rockefeller was a genius, try to learn from his successes, to Rockefeller was a criminal, try to learn from his business failures? Very little. What do I care about the law? Vanderbilt once said. Ain't I got the power? He did, and it worked. But it's easy to imagine those being the last words of a story with a very different outcome. The line between bold and reckless can be thin. When we don't give risk and luck their proper billing, it's often invisible. Benjamin Graham is known as one of the greatest investors of all time, the father of value investing and the early mentor of Warren Buffett. But the majority of Benjamin Graham's investing success was due to owning an enormous chunk of GEICO stock, which, by his own admission, broke nearly every diversification rule that Graham himself laid out in his famous text. Where does the thin line between bold and reckless fall here? I don't know. Graham wrote about his GEICO bonanza. One lucky break or one supremely shrewd decision. Can we tell them apart? Not easily. We similarly think Mark Zuckerberg is a genius for turning down Yahoo's 2006 $1 billion offer to buy his company. He saw the future and stuck to his guns. But people criticize Yahoo, which with as much passion for turning down its own big buyout offer from Microsoft. Those fools should have cashed out while they could. What is the lesson for entrepreneurs here? I have no idea because risk and luck are so hard to pin down. There are so many examples of this. Countless fortunes and failures owe their outcome to leverage. The best and worst managers drive their employees as hard as they can. The customer is always right, and customers don't know what they want are both accepted business wisdom. The line between inspiringly bold and foolishly reckless can be a millimeter thick and only visible with hindsight. Risk and luck are doppelgangers. This is not an easy problem to solve. The difficulty in identifying what is luck, what is skill, and what is risk is one of the biggest problems we face when trying to learn about the best way to manage money. But two things can point you in better direction. Be careful who you praise and admire. Be careful who you look down upon and wish to avoid becoming. Or just be careful when assuming that 100% of outcomes can be attributed to effort and decisions. After my son was born, I wrote him a letter that said in part, some people are born into families that encourage education, others are against it. Some are born into flourishing economies, encouraging of entrepreneurship. Others are born into war and destitution. I want you to be successful and I want you to earn it. But realize that not all success is due to hard work and not all poverty is due to laziness. Keep this in mind when judging people, including yours. Therefore, focus less on specific individuals and case studies and more on broad patterns. Studying a specific person can be dangerous because we tend to study extreme examples, the billionaires, the CEOs, or the massive failures that dominate the news. And extreme examples are often the least applicable to other situations given their complexity. The more extreme the outcome, the less likely you can apply its lessons to your own life, because the more likely the outcome was influenced by extreme ends of luck or risk. You will get closer to actionable takeaways by looking to broad patterns of success and failure. The more common the pattern, the more applicable it might be to your life. Trying to emulate Warren Buffett's investment success is hard because his results are so extreme that the role of luck in his lifetime performance is very likely high, and luck isn't something you can reliably emulate. But realizing, as we will see in chapter 7, that people who have control over their time tend to be happier in life in a broad and common enough observation that you can do something with it. My favorite historian, Frederick Lewis Allen, spent his career depicting the life of the average median American, how they lived, how they changed, what they did for work, and what they ate for dinner, etc. There are more relevant lessons to take away from this kind of broad observation than there are in studying the extreme characters that tend to dominate the news. Bill Gates once said, success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose. When things are going extremely well, realize it's not as good as you think. You are not invincible, and if you acknowledge that luck brought you success, then you have to believe in luck's cousin, risk, which can turn your story around just as quickly. But the same is true in the other direction. Failures can be a lousy teacher because it seduces smart people into thinking their decisions were terrible when sometimes they just reflect the unforgiving realities of risk. The trick when dealing with failure is arranging your financial life in a way that a bad investment here and a missed financial goal there won't wipe you out, so you can keep playing until the odds fall in your favor. But more important is that as much as we recognize the role of luck in success, the role of risk means we should forgive ourselves and leave room for understanding when judging failures. Nothing is as good as it or as bad as it seems. Now let's look at the stories of two men who pushed their luck. Anyone would like to read chapter 3, Never Enough?
I can read Money.
Yeah, please.
Never enough when rich people do crazy things. John Bogle, the Vanguard founder who passed away in 2019, once told a story about money that highlights something we don't think about enough. At a party given by a billionaire on, on Shelter Island, Kurt Vonnegut informs his pal, Joseph Heller, that their host, a hedge fund manager, had made more money in a single day than Heller had earned from his wildly popular novel Catch 22 over its whole history. Heller responds, yes, but I have something he will never have enough. Enough? I was stunned by the simple eloquence of that word. Stunned for two reasons. First, because I have been given so much in my own. Because Joseph Heller couldn't have been more accurate. For a critical element of our society, including most of the wealthiest and most powerful among us, there seems to be no limit today on what enough entails. It is so smart and so powerful. Let me offer two examples of the dangers of not having enough and what they can teach us. Rajat Gupta was born in Kolkata and orphaned as a teenager. People talk about the privileged few who begin life on third base. Gupta couldn't even see the baseball stadium. What he went on to achieve from those belongings was simply phenomenal. By his mid 40s, Gupta was CEO of McKinsey, the world's most prestigious consulting firm. He retired in 2007 to take on roles with the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. He partnered on philanthropic work with Bill Gates. He sat on the board of directors of 5 public companies. From the hello, from the slums of Kolkata, Gupta had quite literally become one of the most successful businessmen alive. With this success came enormous wealth. By 2018, 100 million. It is an unfathomable sum of money to most. A 5% annual return on that much money generates almost $600 an hour. That is 24 hours a day. He could have done anything he wanted in life. And what he wanted, by all accounts, wasn't to be a mere centimillionaire. Rajat Gupta wanted to be a billionaire and he wanted it badly. Gupta sat on the board of directors of Goldman Sachs, which surrounded him with some of the wealthiest investors in the world. One investor, citing the paydays of private equity tycoons, described Gupta like this: I think he wants to be in that is a billionaire that's a billionaire circle, right? Gold, Goldman is like the hundred of millions circle, right? Hundreds of millions circle, right? Right? So Gupta found a lucrative side hustle. In 2008, as Goldman Sachs started at the wrath of the financial crisis, Warren Buffett planned to invest $5 billion into the bank to help it survive. As a Goldman board member, Gupta learned of this transaction before the public. It was valuable information. Goldman's survival was in doubt, and Buffet's backing would surely send its stock soaring. 16 seconds after learning of the pending deal, Gupta, who was dialed into the Goldman board meeting, hung up the phone and called a hedge fund manager named Raj Rajaratnam. The call wasn't recorded, but 175,000 shares of Goldman Sachs. So you can guess what was discussed. The Buffett Goldman deal was announced to the public hours later. Goldman stock surged. Rajaratnam made a quick $1 million. That was just one example of an alleged trend. The SEC claims Gupta's insider tips led to $17 million in profits. It was easy money. And for prosecutors, it was even easier case. Gupta and Rajaratnam both went to prison for insider trading, their careers and reputations irrevocably ruined. Now, consider Bernie Madoff. His crime is well known. Madoff is the most notorious Ponzi schemer since Charles Ponzi himself. Madoff swindled investors for 2 decades before his crime was revealed. Ironically, just week after Gupta's endeavor. What is overlooked is that Madoff, like Gupta, was more than a fraudster. Before the Ponzi scheme that made Madoff famous, he was wildly successful and legitimate businessman. Madoff was a market maker, a job that matches buyers and sellers of stocks. He was very good at it. Here is how. The Wall Street Journal described Madoff's market making firm in 1992. He was built a highly profitable securities firm. He has built a highly profitable securities firm, Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities, which siphons a huge volume of stock trades away from the big board. The $740 billion average daily volume of trades executed electronically by the Madoff firm off the exchange equals 9% of the New York exchanges. Mr. Madoff's firm can execute trades so quickly and cheaply that it actually pays other brokerage firms a penny a share to execute their customers' orders, profiting from the spread between bid and ask prices that most stocks trade for. This is not a journalist inaccurately describing a fraud yet to be uncovered. Madoff's market making business was legitimate. A former staffer said the market making arm of Madoff's business made between $25 million and $50 million per year. Bernie Madoff's legitimate, non fraudulent business was, by any measure, a huge success. It made him hugely and legitimately wealthy, and yet the fraud. The question we should ask of both Gupta and Madoff is why someone worth hundreds of millions of dollars would be so desperate for more money that they risked everything in pursuit of even more. Crime committed by those living on the edge of survival is one thing. A Nigerian scam artist once told the New York Times that he felt guilty for hurting others, but poverty will not make you feel the pain. When Gupta and Madoff did what Gupta and Madoff did is something different. They already had everything: unimaginable wealth, prestige, power, freedom, and they threw it all away because they wanted more. They had no sense of enough. They are extreme examples, but there are non-criminal versions of this behavior. The hedge fund long term capital management was staffed with traders personally worth tens and hundreds of millions of dollars each, with most of their wealth invested in their own funds. Then they took so much risk in the quest for more that they managed to lose everything. In 1998, in the middle of the greatest bull market and strongest economy in history, Warren Buffett later put it, to make money they didn't have and didn't need, they risked what they didn't have and did need. I'll just repeat here. To make money they didn't have and didn't need, they risked what they did have and did need. And that is foolish. It is just plain foolish. If you risk something that is important to you for something that is unimportant to you, it just does not make any sense. There is no reason to risk what you have and need what you don't have and don't need. So, it is one of those things that is as obvious as it is overlooked. Few of us will ever have $100 million as Gupta or Madoff did. But a measurable percentage of those reading this book will, at some point in their life, earn a salary or have a sum of money sufficient to cover every reasonable thing they need and a lot of what they want. If you're one of them, remember a few things. First, the hardest financial skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. But it is one of the most important. If expectations rise with results, there is no logic in striving for more because you will feel the same after putting in extra effort. It gets dangerous when the taste of having more money, more power, more prestige increases ambition faster than satisfaction. In that case, one step forward pushes the goalpost 2 steps ahead. You feel as if you're falling behind, and the only way to catch up is to take greater and greater amount of risk. Modern capitalism is a pro at two things: generating wealth and generating envy. Perhaps they go hand in hand. Wanting to surpass your peers can be the fuel of hard work, but life isn't any fun without a sense of enough. Happiness, as it is said, is results just results minus expectations. The second, social comparison is the problem here. Consider a rookie baseball player who earns $500,000 a year. He is, by any definition, rich. But say he plays on the same team as Mike Trout, who has a 12-year $430 million contract. By comparison, the rookie is broke. But then think about Mike Trout. $36 million per year is an insane amount of money. But to make it on the list of the top 10 highest paid hedge fund managers in 2018, you needed to earn at least $340 million in 1 year. That is who people like Trout might compare their incomes to. And the hedge fund manager who makes $340 million per year compares himself to the top 5 hedge fund managers who earned at least $770 million in 2018. Those top managers can look ahead to people like Warren Buffett, whose personal fortune increased by $3.5 billion in 2018. And someone like Buffett could look ahead to Jeff Bezos, whose net worth increased by $24 million in 2018. A sum that equates to more per hour than the rich baseball player made in full year. So the point is that the ceiling of social comparison is so high that virtually no one will ever hit it, which means it is a battle that can never be won, or that the only way to win is to not fight to begin with, to accept that you might have enough, even if it is less than those around you. A friend of mine makes an annual pilgrimage to Las Vegas. One year, he asked a dealer, "What games do you play and what casinos do you play in?" The dealer, stone cold serious, replied, "The only way to win is a Las Vegas casino is to exit as soon as you enter." That is exactly how the game of trying to keep up with other people's wealth works too. Should I read this, Money, or should somebody take it? Hello?
Yes, yes, yeah. Anyone wants to read?
Okay, I will read.
Go on, yes.
Okay. Enough is not too little. The idea of having enough might look like conservatism, leaving opportunity and potential on the table. I don't think that is right. Enough is realizing that the opposition and unstable appetite for more will push you to the point of regret. The only way to know how much food you can eat is to eat until you are sick. Few try this because vomiting hurts more than any meal is good. For some reason, the same logic doesn't translate to business and investing. And many will only stop reaching for more when they break and force to do. This can be an innocent as burning out at work or a risky investment allocation you can't maintain. On the other end, there is Rajat. Uh, can you scroll? There is Rajat Gupta's and
Guptas and Barney Madoffs in the world who resort to stealing because every dollar is worth reaching for regardless of consequences. Whatever it is, the inability to deny a potential dollar will eventually catch up to you. 4. There are many things never worth risking, no matter the potential gain. After he was released from prison, Rajat Gupta told the New York Times he had learned a lesson. Don't get too attached to anything, your reputation, your accomplishments, or any of it. I think about it now. What does it matter? Okay. This thing unjustly destroyed my reputation. That only troubling if I am so attached to my reputation. This seems like the worst possible takeaway from his experience. And what I imagine is the comforting self justification of a man who desperately wants his reputation back but knows it's gone. Reputation is invaluable. Freedom and independence are invaluable. Family and friends are invaluable. Being loved by those who you want to love you is invaluable. Happiness is invaluable. And your best shot at keeping these things is knowing when it's time to stop taking risks that might harm them, knowing when you have enough. The good news is that the most powerful tool for building enough is remarkably simple and doesn't require taking risks that could damage any of these things. That's the next chapter. So we are reading fourth chapter also.
No, I think that's Manisalvi, what do you suggest? Once again,
Are you able to hear me?
yeah, now we are.
So I said we will stop here for the day and we will reflect on what we read. So what were your takeaways? What points were clarifying your doubts? What was like a aha moment, which was like you did not know about that and you came to understand? And which was the most impactful example? So just go about, let's go about discussing what were our takeaways, right, from these two chapters that we read today. Yeah, anyone?
For me, the entire I'm Padma here, Mani. I will just I just have a very few takeaway because those those business deals and all that I was not much familiar about it, but all that catched my attention here was the very starting line which said that nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. So that was the a beautiful line which I can make a lot of reflection in this. And the next is when we don't give with respect to the risk and luck, so when we don't give the proper billing, it is often invisible. So when you don't treat it in the proper way, both the risk and luck is invisible, is what my takeaway. And in connection to this, uh, uh, where not all success comes from hard work and what not poverty comes only due to laziness, is also a point which I needs to reflect more. And mm, having a control over the time tends to be happier. So these are the uh, areas where I thought I can work on.
Okay, thanks for sharing, Padma. Anyone else?
Okay, I will put my thought about this. Actually, I read this book 2 times, so it's like third time I'm reading with you. So, what I understand, see, the thing is, what driven people to make money, the greed. We want to be rich as much as we want to. There is nothing like always we want some more. Like this package is not enough. We want more, and because of that, people are ready to sacrifice so many things. Sometimes their family, sometimes their health. Like if you guys know Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, he is one of the billionaire. Okay, he made all money from the stock market. But what he sacrificed his health. Like I think 1 2 year back only he died, and he was in his 60s. And when you ask him, in his last moment when it was asked what he regretted the most, he said, "I'm ready to give all my wealth only if I can get my health." Okay, So that was the case with him. And like one more point was discussed here, with the, you don't know when the luck will hit you, right? You don't know, like right time at right position, and you are having the right mindset to make the money or to lose the, whatever it is, not the money, like whatever is like any opportunity. So like he gave like in the book gave the example of Microsoft and Bill Gates and the other guy who died in the, being a mountaineer who was also working with them. So one guy was, one in a million lucky, and one was one in a million unlucky. And same happened with all of us in, day to day life. Somewhere we are taking the wrong decision. We are thinking that we are doing it right, but things go wrong. Okay, so we are there is nothing in our control. Sometimes we can't control everything. We are having very, little control over everything. And at that time, how we play the game, it's like a life is like a chess game. So how you play it, that's how you receive it. So it's like that. So I feel what the writer he was trying to say, like never get attached to anything so much. Never get, think like I am the best. Okay, so being a mediocre, you can make big. Don't sacrifice, for to making a big money, don't sacrifice yourself. Because psychology plays out in different ways, in different levels. If you guys are in stock market, you may be able to understand how the market is going and how our psychology works when, our stock is going up or going down, or which one is in watch list is not working. So that time so many thoughts are going through your mind, and that time you need to be calm to take the right action. And right action can be not taking any action. Thank you.
Wow, so beautifully said, Swasti. Thank you for sharing and joining, in spite of reading the book twice. So your insights are valuable. So thank you so much. So yeah, anyone else? Please go.
Yeah, I just want to share my insights from today's reading. See why Warren Buffett made so much money, because he used the power of compounding. Because uh, what happened is that if we are making like less progress also, but continuous progress, over a period of time, the money that it will generate will be so much that you know that we can be feel proud of what we are doing. Okay, so the idea is to make consistent progress, uh, and not risking that can bring you down. It's just like वो कहते हैं ना कि मुर्गी नहीं खानी अंडा खा लो, just like that. But some people are so much hungry about money that they will risk what they have. Okay, so the idea is don't risk what you cannot afford to lose, and also understand the power of compounding. Because if we are making continuous progress in a business, okay, initially, so what we are doing is we are uh, having a better control on our investments, our process, and things around that. It's just like when we are driving a car, right? So we are in more control when the speed is low, right? And when the speed is high, you cannot have control, and you have risk of making a big accident and things like that. So that is one thing. So focus on the power of compounding. Don't risk what you can't afford to lose. Okay, then initially focus on small achievements, so that uh, if you make some risk also, right, with small failures, small risk, it will never let you down enough so that you can't rise again. So focus on small progress, consistent progress, and down the line, if you have some failures also, they will be manageable, right? But if we take big risk and if we have one failure, that can just eat all our lifetime savings in business, in whatever investing you call it. So the best advice is from Warren Buffett. Don't risk what you can't.
Yes, yeah.
Sometimes, you know sorry, hello. And one more thing is, the author mentioned very nicely that in the journey of earning money too much on that, we sometimes neglect our health, family, friends, which value equally as money in our lifetime. So, and also we should never compare ourselves with others. Like, okay, he's making so much money that okay, I start comparing myself with somebody. But because every person's journey is different. Through like Bill Gates had the computer when nobody other people had. So we have to understand our own weaknesses and strengths, our abilities, and based on that we have to make actions so that we can have a better control on our decisions, actions, risk, failures, and things like that. So I think that's all I would say.
Thanks, Manishji, for sharing your points. Anybody else would like to share?
Yeah, one more thing I want to add, the power of like, see, when we are investing or when you are into business, so it's just like, like an aeroplane which is taking off from the airport. Like initially it has to run for 5 miles, 7 miles, 8 miles. Okay, but the speed is only like 200 kilometers like that. But when it is in the air, it is speed is like 1000, 1500 kilometer per hour, things like that. So same thing is like the power of compounding. Initially will not see much progress, but down the line, if you are doing that consistently, our investment will grow very high. And knowing that the power of compounding, the business, investing, or whatever we are into, if we are able to manage our money well over a period of time, like maybe first 5 years we not have much money, but we are in a better control of our position, situation, our knowledge of the business, and so many things. So next 5 years, next 10 years will be very rewarding. And Warren Buffett also says that it's his 90% wealth is made after 65 years of age. You can imagine. So if we are able to, manage our money well initially, consistently, then down the line we'll see that during our lifetime we'll have enough money to be happy about, right? So we should never undermine the importance of small progress, consistent progress, power of compounding, and what we can't afford to lose. So I think these are very powerful insights. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that addition. Yeah, anyone else would like to share what were their takeaways?
So for me personally, that part where he mentioned the luck and risk difference, and where he mentioned about even the letter that he wrote to his son, that was a wonderful insight and takeaway. And the way he mentioned that anyone can be lucky and anything can be a risk, and you never know what turns out where, and even like you are not in control of in which family you're born and things like that. So all those like how a conditioning affects so many things, and all those things that were highlighted for me, and the way he wrote for to his son that don't judge, not nor others, not yourself. So that part was a big takeaway for me today. So and also the way he has highlighted the difference, and how things are not really in our control. Maybe he'll take us further in the chapters that how we actually get them in control, or what should we abide by and things like that. So yeah, so those, like, because we only understand things in hindsight, right? We don't understand them beforehand when we are actually making the decision. So and you never know which decision is going to turn what. So that part I really liked, I loved about this book overall. And along with that also about not risking, like not to that line that was there, right? Like it mentioned that do not give away what you don't need, what you need for something that you don't need. So that part, so yeah, those two things were the biggest takeaways for me today. So even reflecting upon these things before making any decisions can make a lot of difference, I feel. Yeah, anyone else, please go on.
Okay, so I would like to share my takeaways from the reading today. Actually, as we go and proceed into the book, I could feel that the same way of writing that I have seen of Morgan Housel in one of his other books, Same as Ever. So the pattern in which he writes is basically he takes some certain concepts related to it, and he brings out these stories from history, actual factual stories from history, and then combines it to bring out the psychology there, and also leaves a question that which clarifies what we are actually believing today. So the same way, I think he has written this book as well. So I think he is a student of history, finance, as well as psychology, and he has combined it very well. Here today in chapter 2, which talks about luck and risk, we generally, the underlying point is how are we judging ourselves? The belief challenged is that we listen to a lot of stories and we get very inspired and, very worked up by them. But are they really the true stories? Are we, looking at all the facts of the stories? I think Bill Gates' story was something which brought it down to us that, there are many aspects. There are aspects of luck and there is aspect of risk. We generally tend to look at one of the aspects. So he's trying to bring out the point why both play a role, giving examples, and generally luck is overlooked and we generally judge ourselves and burden ourselves that our decision went wrong. But when we take a decision at very limited information. Second, there are a lot of things which are beyond our control and even we cannot fathom them. We cannot know for sure. So there is a lot of uncertainty element when we take a decision. Yes, a mindset at that time is also important. How we perceive it is important, but not always we can perceive it in an ideal situation. So given a fact, I think this entire narrative is to build empathy for ourselves and for others. That yes, we cannot take the full credit as well as the blame for the outcomes because that are beyond your control. I think even the Gita says that you don't attach yourself to the outcome because there are a lot of things which are beyond your control and which might affect the outcome. So instead, focus on the action, the process that you are getting into. So I could relate that point coming out here, as well as a bit more empathy towards the way we look at ourselves and judge ourselves. So maybe we can be more empathetic. Maybe we can be more embracing to humility, that don't take full credit as well as blame, but just be more understanding that there is a luck factor, there is a risk factor as well. Also, it brings out that the uncertainty and the variety of things are so much that we need to build resilience to prepare ourselves from the uncertainty. That is all we can do. Because from the examples itself, we could understand that there are so many different ways in which life can turn up. Also, somewhere I think I lack the appreciation of luck today, which might be playing. Luck I would relate to, an understanding which is deeper and which will actually, give way to the gratitude practice. So if I practice gratitude, I think I can appreciate the luck, the role of luck in my life. That is what I could also connect here with. So net, what the author is trying to say at the end of the second chapter is what I feel is avoid extreme examples. Try to take as balanced as decisions can be taken, and as well as avoid taking extreme example as a case study or the basis for your decision making. Try to be balanced when you look at risk as well as luck, as well as when you decipher what things went wrong and what things were good enough. do that in a balanced way rather than judging yourself immediately that your decisions made this as a failure or you could have done better. So that was what I could feel as the conclusion of, chapter 2. Now, as far as chapter 3 is concerned, it again opens up a key trait in, us. How do we balance the growth versus envy part, or how do we balance what is enough and what is not enough and go overboard? So I think he's trying to challenge that aspect of our lives where we build everything on what we see around. So the definition of success, the definition of growth seems to be borrowed in terms, as we say, with the cases that we see, or as a comparative that we are chasing something which may not be our aptitude or capability, but what we feel is we have to do because the society, or that is the need of the hour, or that is what is the standard set by the society. So one has to also understand the pitfall of social comparison, especially now online. Everybody knows most of the things happening in other person's life. So there is a constant upward comparison trap which is going on, and we cannot win it because there is someone wealthier than someone else, and it just can go on and on. So the pitfall of social comparison. Also, the deeper understanding, the most important point which I felt here is the hardest financial skill is stopping the moving goalpost, because we are pursuing something, and once we say I am pursuing 100 million, then as I complete pursuing it, I will next go to the 200 million. So we have to understand that the goalposts will just go on increasing. How do we hit a balance? Just do we need to push ourselves by envy, or really are we looking at it's a right standard for your growth, for your own path, and for your own desires and values? Right? When success we continually receive, it seems to be our benchmarks are raised and satisfaction becomes very elusive. It seems to be elusive. So we'll have to recognize and define what is enough for us, and just avoid going into this loop of endless pursuit behind things just for the sake of proving that you are successful or it is enough. And if you see, the word enough itself is, makes us think, what is enough for us? So have we really defined something as enough? I have not. So it's beautifully said, enough is not a shortage. So enough, when we think the word, I think, yes, we think it from an angle that it shows a satisfaction before the point that I can still grow, right? But I feel now the point of enough should be a very balanced and calculated point, where I understand that beyond this, maybe I will compromise or lose more things which I have, and this is enough for me because maybe that fulfills my things that I was pursuing, in terms of money, say. I have this enough money now that I can do all those things. So enough is a realization point, a decision point as well. And it's a point where I think you don't start losing more than you gain. I think that was the most important takeaway for me here. And some things are really priceless, yes. So not worth the risk, like reputation, freedom, family. But since these are not convertible into money terms, and these are not something, these are more of abstract things, I think we don't recognize them enough and celebrate them as enough. So if we understand the real weight of the word enough, I think we'll start protecting what is really valuable, and and what is really important for each one of us, rather going into a generalization that everybody has to have so much of property or wealth to seem successful. That may not be true for you. So it's more like understanding this trap of undesirable or what do you say, insatiable desire, which one tends to go, especially in the case of Rajat Gupta, where it was not required, but for him to take such a big risk. But so he had that lack of understanding that what was enough, I guess, right? So it also makes us question as to what we are trying to go towards, what are we trying to work towards. So this was my takeaways from today's reading, and I am really liking the book because it is not very direct, but it is subtly pushing us to more clarity on certain aspects which we never think is relevant in these cases. And that's where the word psychology is more important, I think, in this book than the word money. Yeah, anyone else would like to add here? Any suggestions, any additions here? Okay, so can we call it a day then? Meet tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot then, guys.
Thank you. Yeah.